Hi and welcome back to KONST. I'm Roland-Philippe Kretzschmar. KONST is a podcast by Scandinavian Mind about contemporary and future art, the interconnection with society, culture, technology, finance and lifestyle. The outlook is primarily at the art world from a Scandinavian perspective, although taking into account the global arena of artists, exhibitions, trade fairs and other current events. This episode is very special for me for various reasons, which I will unbox during the episode. With me today, I have Marina Schiptjenko. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's really hard to summarize, honestly, in short terms, your contribution to the contemporary art scene and to popular culture, but I will give it a try. So you were born in the mid-60s in Malmö, southern Sweden. You have an academic background in literature and theater, and you came to Stockholm in the mid-80s to work in art, and there towards the end of the 80s you also met Ciléne Andréhn, with whom you then founded Andréhn-Schiptjenko, which we will come back to. But in addition to art and contemporary art, you've also worked in music, popular culture. I think you have contributed a lot to popular culture. You've played keyboard in different pop groups, which we hopefully can speak a little bit about. You've been acting lately in The Square, which won a Palme d'Or in Cannes recently. So you have had a huge impact on popular culture, but I would say primarily on the art scene. And through the gallery Andréhn-Schiptjenko, which was founded in 1991 with Ciléne, the gallery has played a role not only in Scandinavia but on the international art scene. You have today galleries in both Stockholm and Paris, and you have successfully launched careers of many Scandinavian artists such as Kajsa von Seipel, Gunnar Wåhlstrand, Annika von Hausfeld, and many others. But you've also given many international artists a scene in Scandinavia. Uta Barth, Cecilia Bengolea, José León Cerillo, Martin Soto Clement, Ridley Howard, Xavier Villon, and many others. The key question is, for me, of course, do you agree, Marina, that you have played a seminal role on this contemporary art scene that I've described?
Wow, first of all, thank you for that introduction. I'm honored. If I agree, yes, I do agree, because when we started the gallery in 1991, there weren't any other galleries like us, actually, because we had a clear idea from the beginning that we wanted to work as an international gallery. And back then, in the beginning of the 90s in Sweden, the galleries you had were mostly a Swedish. Was working on the Swedish arena, with some
exceptions.
Thank you.
Wetterling was one, and
Wetterling, and then you had Sten Eriksson also. So, and then after us came a slew actually of young new galleries, and many of us are still on the scene. So it's a 90s generation in a way. But I think also what we have contributed to is this, what you mentioned in the introduction. It's the international. We have been introducing international artists to Sweden. So we have always, from the very start, it has been very important for us to be on an international level, but working from a Swedish platform. Up till 4 years ago, when we opened our second space in Paris, and we can talk about that later maybe.
Yeah, let's get back to that a bit later. So I said in my introduction that it's a special episode for personal reasons as well. So the first reason is that when you opened up the space, I'm born in 77. So when you opened up the space, I was a teenager, and I remember going to see exhibitions at Andréhn-Schiptjenko in those early years with my mother. And she passed away 15 years ago, but she formed a lot of my interest in art. I mean, my father was an artist. He was a painter. So I
didn't know.
Yeah, so he lived in Switzerland and in Istanbul, and he was an artist throughout his whole life. And he also died too young, unfortunately. But when I grew up with my mother, she always brought me to exhibitions and museums and galleries, and Andréhn-Schiptjenko in the early mid-90s was like my first, I would say, proper experience in Sweden with an art gallery. So that was, I think you have been contributing to forming my view on art as well a lot.
That's amazing.
Yes, I know. So thank you. And the second reason I'm excited is a couple of years later, in the early 2000s, I tried to bring art to a wider audience through working with Melker Andersson. He had Restaurangen down at Hötorget, which was back then a fantastic restaurant. And we wanted to bring art into that space, and you actually helped us to do that, and I was pretty surprised that you...
Did I? Please, I have to be honest, I really don't remember
No,
this.
I know,
Can you
but you did.
Refresh my mind.
Yes,
what
you did.
What did we do together?
Yeah, so it's no, it's fine, because it was you, Axel Mörner, and a few others that, exhibited at Restaurangen together with me during not a long time, a couple of months. We did 1 or 2 hangings in the restaurant with some really interesting artworks. And back then, to be honest, it was not that common that you would have great art in restaurants. Today,
true, and it's coming back to me now.
Yeah, today, you have a lot of others doing great work. Kalle Carboni and others, that are really passionate about art. And but back then, this is, think 2003, 4 something. It was not that common. So I am grateful to you for that as well, even if you didn't remember it.
Hey, you have to remember that I have the gallery for over 30 years.
I know.
So the memory now is like an old Rolodex, You just give me some time, and I just, I twist the wheel, and the card comes up. I do remember now. But I always remember you being a very young gallery visitor. That I remember. That's actually what there are so many things to talk about, but I'm just going to say that that's one thing that is actually still very rewarding for me as a gallerist is the meeting with the audience. Because otherwise you could be like just an art dealer, but I just love this, and actually I do love that I have 30 years to look back at now together with Ciléne. Suddenly it's like, oh my God, do you remember that? And like you have grown up, you were a boy from the start. I like that.
Yeah, no, but I think it's, of course, interesting with this conversation today, because you also have this perspective, like earlier this week, and this will come in a later episode. I interviewed Philip and Jeanette from Coulisses Gallery that opened this year. And then I have you on the show that has been working 30 years, and I love how vibrant the Stockholm art scene is at the moment. It feels like there's this new energy.
Yes, I've been waiting for that to happen, and now it is happening.
Why do you think that's happening now?
I haven't thought of it, but let's see. I think it's a little bit of a ketchup effect. If one starts, other follows. And also I think maybe it's because of after the pandemic. We started our gallery when it was a recession, and maybe there is, people have had the time to rethink a little. I think the pendulum is swinging, because it has been, we've been living for quite a few years now with an ideal of making a lot of money, that money is success. And I think I feel a slow shift towards back to my roots, where success was having, something that is meaningful for you to do, and it's not necessarily about making money. You don't work to make the money, you work to fulfill yourself and to give something out. So maybe that is also a shift in attitude, that the young generation wants to do that now.
Since we are on this topic, out of curiosity, my own interpretation or kind of observation of this new generation of both gallerists and curators and actually artists is that they have also grown up, as fully digital natives. Some people think when you talk about the kind of Instagram artists or Instagram gallerists that it might be negative, but for me it's actually quite positive that there's this whole new generation of creators that have used the strengths, the power of these platforms to reach out to global audiences immediately. sometimes without the need to work with gallerists, for example. But even gallerists, like small niche gallerists that have a global audience immediately because they are using these social platforms really well. What do you have an opinion about that? I mean, you obviously have a longer history in the art scene, so are you? I mean, yeah, just curious. What's your view on that?
Well, there are different levels in that discussion. I mean, I still think personally, but I also feel, I know that a lot of people agrees with me that you want to experience art live. You want to go into the room, you want to feel it physically and, you know, in the room and three-dimensionality, etc., etc. You also want to hang out with people in real life. So I don't think, I mean, we saw that quite clearly during the pandemic years, that this thing with online viewing rooms and all that. Well, maybe you could sell art from a very established artists to people that really know what they want, but you can't introduce new artists really successfully there. That's my opinion, and also I think it's empirically stated.
But what about using these platforms as a marketing vehicle?
Yeah, well, that's good, of course. I mean, you can't avoid it. I suck at it. I mean, I'm so bad at using Instagram and all that, but I mean, we work with that a lot too with the gallery, you know. So you can't avoid it, and I think that's very positive. You know, when I tell my staff that I mean, in the beginning of our careers, first, you know, you put up a show, then you had to hire a photographer to take photos, and then you had to wait for the photos to be developed, and then you had them copied into slides, and then you had to mark the slides on a typewriter, and then you had to put it in an envelope, and then you had to mail it to the people. I mean, that took like 10 days, 14 days. Of course, everything is quicker and easier, and I must say much more fun through technology nowadays. So I don't have anything against that at all.
All right. Well, listen, let's do time travel. 1991, as you said, there was a financial crisis in the Nordics. The 80s were definitely over. Why did you want to start the gallery back then?
Well, we wanted to start a gallery because we met and we both had been working at other galleries before, Ciléne Andréhn and I. So that came quite natural, actually, that we had already sort of decided to start our professional career in that business. And then we met working together at the gallery, and after 6 months the owners decided to close the gallery. So the natural next step actually was to start our own space. But of course it was easier for us to start due to the recession, because we easily found a small apartment that we could rent immediately. It was 40 square meters, and the audience were really, you know, with us from the start, and also the artists, because we presented something that was new and a new initiative, and people, I think it was quite depressing and worrisome time. It was worrisome. People were super afraid, you know, it was very, very bad for a while. So I think that we, together with others, offered a scene and in a way, you know, a place where you could meet up and talk and party and meet with the artists and look at, you know, people were very, very interested in art in the beginning of the 90s in Sweden. It was the scene, you know.
They still are, I guess.
Yeah, and then, they are. In a different way, in a way, but
what's the difference then? I mean,
I think the big difference is that it was easier to get people to come into the gallery, you know, to meet up, to party and come to the dinners and all that in the beginning of the 90s. Now it's an overload of everything, you know, and it's not only on the art scene. There is so many things going on. People travel more, you have streaming, you have, you know, you have so many things that distract people. You didn't have that 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So out of curiosity, what's the main difference between you and Ciléne? I mean, you're two different people, I know that, but but how do you complement each other? What are, let's say, the differences and the similarities between you?
Well, first of all, I think our strength, and we always say that, and we still believe in that, is that we weren't two friends from the start that just decided to do something fun together. We met as two professional people and with a vision. We really found a friendship and a base to stand on from that equal vision of what we wanted to show and what we wanted to do with our gallery. And then we complement each other. And that's so complicated and sometimes and a bit personal. So I mean, I guess that I will not sort of really go there. But I guess I think we complement each other. But I think really we have a big strength in being two. You know, because we work very, very hard. We work all the time. So it's good to be two, because then you always have another people on the other, a person on the other end that really understands what you're going through, or if you're tired, or if you're going to do that. So it's a very, very valuable thing, and we're actually super proud of having. We've been together for over 30 years in our business.
Yeah, let's get back to Paris later.
Yeah.
So when you started, did it immediately take off, like commercially, or?
No, we had to work extra the first 2 or 3 years in order to survive, because we didn't have any money in the company. We just borrowed money from our mothers, actually, for the to start the company, and then we had to work extra. 2 or 3 years we worked parallel in order to get it going.
So what was the shift?
I think the shift was that you just have to learn how to do it. You have to learn how to sell, and you have to build a client base, and especially since we were introducing a lot of artists that weren't known on the scene. I mean, we did a very early show with Xavier Vion, his first show outside of France. We showed Jake and Dinos Chapman before they were known, and I mean that was art that people found very interesting. But we always got the question, but how, you can't buy this? Of course you could, and but we just, I think, had to educate the audience a little, and parallel to that, also learn ourselves how to be, how to place art, and how to do it. Even if we had been working on business before, but it's a different thing. It's a different thing when you have your own company.
Can I ask you? I mean, today when you speak about the art scene with people, there's a lot of talk about the collectors, the collecting community, and there's so much money now as well, and so much new money, and people that need to spend the money on something, right? But to my understanding, also why the Scandinavian art scene has been so interesting commercially is also that there's been many institutions, museums, and kind of governmentally supported funds that have kind of nourished the art industry. Is that true or not? Or
no, both yes and no. I mean, I really like the system that we have in Sweden, but I don't think that we have really had so much help from institutions, and certainly not from the government, certainly not from politicians, because if you compare to Denmark, and I think also Norway, maybe Finland too, I don't know, they early on got help with money to introduce artists abroad. So they got money for doing the art fairs. They could apply for money for transportation, first of all, and we have never had that.
So what was the first art fair you went to?
The first art fair we did was Art Chicago, followed by List in Basel, and then we did Statements in Basel, and we've been doing Art Basel for almost 25 years.
Yeah. So what would be the main difference from the trade fairs back then and now?
Smaller. They were smaller. The business was smaller. The scene was smaller. Now it's huge, and you have so many more art fairs, and they are bigger, and you have more artists, and you have more dealers. So in the beginning of the 90s, you kind of knew each other. You met a lot of colleagues. You had drinks after the fair, and you didn't hang out so much with the collectors. And now it's more, you just work. And after when the fair closes, you go to dinners with your collectors and all that. So it's just it's a bigger industry now. I think that's the biggest difference.
Why do you need to wine and dine the collectors so much?
Well, actually, some of them are quite nice, so it's fun.
Good point.
And I heard that you mentioned in the introduction to the pod, you said the word lifestyle. And it's a little bit cringe for me, that word lifestyle, when you mention it together with art. But of course it is part of a lifestyle, both to be a gallerist but also certainly to be a collector. And so it's not only about buying art, it's about hanging out on the scene, having often very interesting discussions actually, having a lot of fun and just feeling that you're part of a community. I mean, I would say that the majority of collectors, they are really, really engaged in the scene. They want to meet the artists, they want to know. I would say that the majority of collectors, they collect art because they learn something all the time. And you get access to that when you are a collector. You get access to a very interesting scene that is often in the forefront when it comes to other topics, like science, to name one. And technology and internet technology and etc.
Yeah, and the reason I kind of connected to lifestyle and all these other areas is, in my view, art is obviously for everyone. I don't think anyone would argue about that, but I also want to make it as accessible as possible. I thought quite a lot, like, can you really create a podcast about art? There are many other podcasts about art, but can you talk about art? Would there be a risk that you would over-intellectualize art? And then my conclusion was, hey, I want to talk more about the system, the artists, the gallerists, like not talk so much about art itself. And then I actually do think it is, as you also confirm, very much part of a lifestyle of many people. And I think that's actually great. I think lifestyle is something positive if we connect it to art in that way, that not everyone can be a collector or not everyone can run an art gallery, but there's a lot of people with an interest in art and they feel that they connect to, it's part of their identity to be part of that community.
Yes, and of course I really want to add that now, because now we were talking about collectors, but I mean that's why you have a gallery, to create the meeting.
Yes.
I mean, you're offering the scene. So you don't have to buy art to in order to tap into all this knowledge and all these interesting discussions that are going on. You can just visit the gallery, and strike up a conversation and hang out with people there.
But why do you think a traditional gallery space is still so quiet, so white, so kind of it's not a hostile environment, but it can feel scary for a lot of people to go into a traditional art gallery? Why do you think that the galleries still keep to this format?
Well, this question and this discussion has been since since we started the gallery, and I still can't understand what is so hostile, what is so scary. I really truly don't understand that. I mean, you open because hey, it's open. You don't have to pay entrance fee. You can just go in. Someone hopefully says hello to you, and then you can just start. Look at the art. So now I'm actually asking you, why do people still say that it's so hostile environment in galleries? Tell me, because I certainly
my own
can't
observation,
answer that question.
And this is very subjective, of course, is that some galleries, no names mentioned,
yes,
you might still, let's say maybe not so much in Sweden anymore, but still, if you go to some blue chip galleries in some of the major cities in the world, on the most expensive streets, when you go into those galleries, they might not even say hello to you. It's very quiet. It's like it's for me, it's fantastic. It's an opportunity to meditate, to relax, to look at art. So I feel very comfortable there. But I can imagine that many people that are, let's say, not that familiar with the art scene might feel it's a bit distant. It's almost church-like, or it's you know, it's and I have no idea why it's still like that.
But I mean, still like it. It's still like that because the environment is made for showing art. So, I mean, and then I've seen through the years people that really tries to do something else. You know, they play music or they have parties and all that. But at the end of the day, you know, when the party is over, it's about the art. And so, you know, you just have to have the room to install the art in. So, but I mean, maybe it's intimidating just to go into a quiet, fairly large room. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, either with or without art.
Yes,
Exactly.
maybe that's the answer to the question. Because of course, I mean, I can feel sometimes if I look scruffy and I have a bad hair day and I go into a very expensive shop for clothes or jewelry. Of course, I notice that I am not as well received as if I have a good day.
No,
but you know, I just don't care.
No,
But so maybe that's also the. I can just tell you that we've always at Andréhn-Schiptjenko had the idea, or it's very important for us that when you as a visitor enter our gallery, our spaces, there would be someone to greet you, to say hello, welcome. Then we don't want the visitor to feel chased. So next question is, just tell me if you want me to say anything about the art. And people say, yes, thank you, I will. And some people say, I'm fine. And some people say, yes, I would love that. So I think that creates a good environment, and it's friendly, and it's not too much. You know.
So you also talked about how these trade fairs or art fairs have changed shape and form over the years. It's much more commercial, as you say. There's much more money, much harder competition. We have Frieze this week. We have Art Basel or Paris Plus next week. You're going to exhibit in Paris. You've been at Art Basel for, you said, 25 years. I mean, out of curiosity, like, what do you make out of the contemporary art fair scene?
It has become an unavoidable factor. You just have to do the fairs in order to reach not only collectors and that international audience, but also the museums and media and all that. So to be a bit sort of harsh about it, I mean, I think you need to do the art fairs in order to promote your artists.
How do you select?
It's not only at the art fairs, but it's one very important tool.
Yeah, I mean, and then there is, of course, Basel and others that are established, Frieze, etc. But how do you select among all of these different art fairs that exist at the moment?
Well, it depends on, you know, of course you want to exhibit at the powerful art fairs, and Basel is absolutely the most important fair organizer. That's just.
And to my understanding, it's not the most expensive. They're still keeping this system of like you pay for the. Yeah, but it's. I know it's very expensive, but it's to my understanding not the most expensive, and that they have this system still that every gallery pays the same fee regardless of size of gallery, turnover of gallery. That, you know, you pay for the square meters you buy. I mean.
You do, yes. But now I'm a bit unsure because I think that maybe Art Basel has. I think you have to pay a little bit more per square meter if you have the really large booths.
Oh, maybe. Okay. So what are you going to do next week then?
So next week we are participating at the first edition of Paris Plus par Art Basel. And it's of course a big thing. It's the hottest ticket right now, actually. Because everyone is so curious to see how it will be, and of course, you know, it's FIAC had to close and all that. So I think a lot of people will go there, and I'm very, very happy. I'm actually very much looking forward to install our booth because we're introducing new artists, new in the gallery program. And also parallel to that, we're opening a big show with Kajsa von Seipel in our space in Paris. So it's going to be I think, a insanely hectic week, but also hopefully insanely fun.
Yeah, and I'm hopefully meeting you there. I'm going to be in Paris next week, yes. So I'm planning to go to the preview on Wednesday and then a few other things during the week. So yeah, hopefully I will meet you as well. But do you think that it's is it still like the main arena where you do business, or is it more, as you say, kind of this social element?
It's one of the main arenas for business, absolutely. But also, as you are saying, for a professional, you know, you talk a lot to your colleagues. It's always, you know, it's a way to exchange experiences. You meet new people, not only collectors. You meet new colleagues, and you exchange experiences and ideas. So I think fairs are, I mean, it's so easy to say all the negative things about fairs. And, you know, sometimes I laugh when I see people trying to write reviews from art fairs. I mean, that's like, why? Yeah. Why write a review? Why try to be critical about art that is doing that? It's not an exhibition in that way. It's a very, very important meeting point for art. I'm not saying artists, art collectors, professionals, and you know, if you go there, you learn a lot. So also, I think if you are interested in the scene, you should go to art fairs.
We'll soon unbox a bit more the gallery space in Paris, but before we do, just maybe a last question about the art market. In one of my recent episodes, I interviewed Hilde, the woman behind the kind of Instagram art meme account, Jerry Gogosian, and she kind of makes fun of the whole art scene. And first it was anonymous, and then she was exposed, and you know, now she's kind of building her own name in the space, etc. But I think it was quite interesting, the conversation, especially around the mechanics of the contemporary art scene, especially in the blue chip galleries, and how systematic it is, you know, like there's this system, these rules, and you know, even if you're a billionaire, you can't just go in and buy art, and you know, there's all these written or unwritten rules. Is this something that you recognize? And I mean, you obviously play by the rules, right? Because you're running an art gallery, but...
No, I think I understand the question. I mean, you have... how shall I put this? You have some very, very big players, some very, very big galleries, attracting more and more artists, not always very, very big, but they are sort of inflated just through working with certain galleries. And so that is one sort of universe, one vortex of energy, you know, all this the high prices and the celebrity artists hanging out with celebrities, and the dealers are also celebrities, private jets, etc., etc. And of course they have the privilege, if you would call it that, to also control the market more and more. But the majority actually of the Western world's galleries are still mid-career, mid-size. And we are a very typical example of that. And we are actually, if I may say so, the ones that make this world go around, you know. Because we are finding the new artists. We are collaborating with young new artists. We are you know, following them on their career path, and so I think we are the pods. We are pods for the artists, and then, you know, if you're lucky, some of them propels on, you know, they climb higher levels, and some really, really good artists, they stay, you know, a little bit hidden. Yeah, they have their following. They do super good shows. They are collected. They come into museums, and they do institutional shows and all that. And it's just, you know, something that it's going on parallel to this sort of the big circus with the big money. So I think you just have to, there are some I don't think we should forget about that scene, because it's rather big and rather important.
Yes, but they don't get maybe as much media attention.
No,
from
they
popular
don't.
Media.
No, they don't, because also, you have the PR companies nowadays. You certainly didn't have them in the beginning of the 90s. So, and they have to write news. They have to keep the bubble, big, and so they write their reports from different art fairs, and of course you only read about the billion-dollar deals and etc., etc. But there are so many other much more interesting things going on than that, on the scene.
But did you ever want to become a Pace or a Gagosian, or was that even on your radar, or
we haven't really, that's not our angle really on it. Of course, for us it's very important to be. You have to make a living. You have to. We're here for the artists first of all, and an artist. We want to sell our artists' work and place them in good collections, etc., etc. I think it's more important to talk about motives. The motive for us has always been to, as I said in the beginning, to work on an international arena and introducing also Swedish art to an international audience and vice versa. I think that's what has been very, very important to us. To meet, to also to have, to somehow be a part of a discussion, of a context that is about art and also about our business. So.
But why is it so hard to buy art? And so, literally, even if I'm a billionaire, I can't just go into any art gallery and buy art I want, because there will always be like, okay, are you a collector? What do you collect? What's in your collection? What's your view on art? I can't just go in and say, I want to buy this piece because I like it. So why is it like that?
Because a dealer has to take care of the artist's oeuvre, and we've had. One thing is that we had, people wants to speculate in art. So for a while there was quite, the Wild West with people flipping art. They bought it and they flipped it and they were speculating. So I think a lot of dealers just has been forced to become a little bit more protective. And of course, sometimes you can just be, you are in that position that you can actually place demands on the buyer. Are you going to sell it? Where are you going to install it? In what kind of collection? I don't find it so strange, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
But I hear that you don't agree.
No, I don't disagree.
I'm just trying to give another angle to this.
No, I don't disagree.
So easy to,
But it's just that it's. Again, philosophically, you obviously want art to be accessible to all. But then that's a theory, because in practice it's not.
No, but then I can, even if I am a dealer and a gallerist, you don't necessarily have to own the art in order to experience it.
No,
I come back again to the idea of the gallery. The gallery is, it's about the scene and the meeting. So.
Fair enough. But listen, Paris, while we are in Paris, you have a gallery in Paris since, 4 or 5 years now?
3.5, almost 4 years now.
Okay. So why did you want to open a space there?
Well, that was because, for a few reasons. First of all, Sweden is Sweden. It's small and it's a bit in the periphery. So in order to meet the international audience, we had to travel a lot and we had to do a lot of art fairs. And we were seeing a lot of our colleagues opening up several spaces. We were also discussing that for quite a few years, actually, before we did it, because we wanted also, we wanted to investigate if we could find one more space in order to maybe stop doing so many art fairs. Also to, in order to maybe to get a sort of a deeper and more long-standing relation with our collectors, because at art fairs, you meet and something happens and then you email each other, and then if you don't see each other, it sort of just disappears. So there, and also it was the fact that we had been having our gallery for quite a long time. Ciléne was very prepared to move and try this. She has been living and studied in Paris before. She has a lot of friends there. So there were a lot of parameters behind the decision to do it. Eventually.
And then obviously the pandemic came in between now and then, right? So how did that impact?
That was traumatic, actually.
Yeah.
Because Ciléne had to be in confinement for quite a long time. It was brutal. But we were lucky enough to have we already had planned 2 shows. One with Tony Mattelli and the other one with Ridley Howard. So even if we put up shows, because Ciléne had to sneak away to the gallery, put up a show, and then go home again. We were lucky enough actually to be able to promote those 2 shows, even if the gallery was closed almost all the time. But of course that was a brutal experience, everything.
Can imagine. So Marina, I'm just curious, in my introduction, and for people that knows you, they've seen that you also, you play a role in popular culture, not only in art. So you have been, you have long history in the electronic music scene. You've been acting. Can you unbox a bit that part of you and your life?
So I started my first electronica band 1980 when I was 15 years old. And so I had been playing the classical piano, and then I was totally sort of I think I was a bit of a nerd when I was a kid. I was absolutely into science fiction, and then came the electronica music. I saw Gary Newman and I was like, what is this? I think I had the energy. I was a little bit restless kid, so I just did a lot of things. I bought a synthesizer and we started this band, me and a guy called Eddie. And so it's just been a huge part of my life to be, and I think I'm very, I'm brought up on a subcultural scene. I grew up there, so I think it has been very important for me also when I started the gallery, and it's a big part of my identity. And also, when I grew up, my father came from Russia. He died when I was 10. And it was, I always felt, in a good way, I was a little bit of an outsider. I was looking at things from a slightly different angle. So I think also that gave me the energy to, well, I can do this. I can start a band, because I just felt, I think I had a feeling of a freedom to do whatever I wanted, because I wasn't part of a fixed group when I was growing up, or a fixed part of society.
For our listeners that might not know the bands you've been in, could you?
So the first band
was a long list, right?
Yeah, it's a long list. I'm not going to bore you, but the first band is, and it actually still exists. Our name is Posh, and we played. It's electronica, and we really had a manifest when we started. Monophonic synthesizers. That was the only synthesizers that existed back then. And pop music, la la la. But then also, I have been playing with a guy called Alexander Bard in 2 bands, Vacuum and then Bodies Without Organs. But I do other stuff too. Yeah, we do.
But that experience, which given Alexander Bard's position in the music scene, was more commercial, right?
Yes.
Than maybe
Yes.
other initiatives
Yes.
that you embark on. How it was that? Because and this is again very subjective opinion. Even if I have known you for a long time, I don't know you. So, but my view is that was maybe. Of personality, is that true or not, or is that just a?
So it's the question that how did it feel to be super commercial suddenly together with Alexander Bard in Bodies Without Organs? Yes, it was completely, actually, honestly, it was a concept. Alexander said, "Let's do a hyper commercial pop band that's going to be played on radio." And I was like, yeah, why not? That's fun. But of course, it wasn't really like me. It didn't come from my soul or from my roots. But it was, I had a distant relationship. I was a bit distant, but I had a lot of fun. I wasn't overthinking that one.
No, that's fair. And how much or not has your music musical career kind of helped your career as a gallerist?
Not at all, I would say.
No?
It has no, I don't think so. Of course, as I said, of course, it's a huge part of my personality to come a little bit from the outside.
The name recognition?
No.
There are not that many Schiptjenkos in Sweden.
But I don't think that the gallery has been more successful because I played in bands.
No?
Not at all, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes, to be very honest, during those years, I was thinking, is this bad for the gallery? Yeah. Maybe people will not take the gallery as serious as I, and certainly Ciléne, my business partner that I have a responsibility towards too, will take the maybe they will look at the gallery differently because I do this.
But did Ciléne mention this at all during those years?
No, I mean we have been very sort of generous towards each other, and we try to give each other space and room. But of course we have discussed this during the years. Looking back, I don't think I didn't think it harmed the gallery, but I didn't think that it did something positive for the gallery either. It was just a parallel career in a way. That's my thought.
Yeah. So 30 years of Andréhn-Schiptjenko, the gallery, will it live for another 30 years?
I certainly do hope so. I mean, we are in it for the long. I mean, that's another important thing for us. Long-term representation, to work for hopefully long-term with our artists, and also to keep relationships. To be very serious about that. And but then, I'm not sure that I will be that old. And maybe I don't want to work as much as I do right now when I'm 80.
But your name can still be on the door.
Yes.
Right?
My dog can inherit it, and Ciléne's kids. They can.
So, I mean, I mentioned that I interviewed some young gallerists, and, you obviously, what's happening on the scene generally. What would be an advice to a young gallerist?
Actually, then I will quote my dear colleague Claes Nordenhake, who is slightly older than us. He said yesterday when I talked to him, there are no Sundays in this business. And I think my boring advice, but it's very honest and straightforward, is that you have to work a lot. And in order to work a lot, you think you have to love what you're doing. So don't go into the business if you think it's easy and quick. You have to have passion. Otherwise, it will just kill you.
That's great advice. So listen, to close this off, for the listeners that want to visit you in Stockholm, what can they see currently in the gallery?
A beautiful installation with paintings from 1990 up till now by Maja Eisenöjer, a Swedish legendary, especially she's well known. She sort of became very well known during the Swedish postmodernist years. So for us, it's an important show actually, because we are showing works that were made when we had our first collaboration with Maja, 1991, when we just started the gallery. So it's a piece of Swedish art history and also a piece of Andréhn-Schiptjenko history. So that's what you can see in Stockholm. And then in Paris next week, we're opening a spectacular show with Kajsa von Seipel.
And Kajsa, just a few words about her.
We are proud actually to say that we have some artists that we started working with when they graduated here at the Academy in Stockholm. Annika von Hauswolf, Gunnel Wåhlstrand, and also Kajsa. When we saw her graduation show, it was like, we just have to work with her, and it's been great to follow her career. Now she lives in New York, and she's one of the young Swedish artists that really have an international, very interesting career going on. So, and of course for us, it's a big thing. It's a great joy to be able to offer her now a space in Paris.
Well, looking forward to see the show in Paris. The show in Stockholm is great. So for the listeners, go and visit it. And actually, I saw that you recently picked up Sixten Alexandra, another recent graduate, right?
Sixten Sandra Österberg, exactly,
Yeah.
and she graduated too. And I think her future looks very bright too.
Very, very bright. Marina, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I could go on for hours and hours, but I think we should maybe round off.
Oh, no!
And maybe you can come back to the podcast in the future. But this was KONST, a podcast by Scandinavian Mind about contemporary and future art, the interconnection with society, culture, technology, finance, and lifestyle, right, Marina?
Yes.
and I'm Roland-Philippe Kretzschmar. This was Marina Schiptjenko. Thank you so much.
Thank you.